I'm 26 and my life has been a whirlwind of ambition, self-discovery, and lately heartbreak. For the past 2 years I've been in a relationship with Barry, a kind-hearted guy I met during my master's program. At first, everything felt perfect. Late-night study sessions, shared coffee runs, and the kind of laughter that makes your sides ache. But as time went on, cracks started to show, and I found myself tangled in a mess of my own making. One that led to betrayal and a breakup I'm still trying to process. I'm pursuing a doctorate in clinical psychology, a path that demands every ounce of my energy. The stakes are high: internships, research papers, and networking events that could shape my career. I've always been driven, the kind of person who wakes up at 5 a.m. to hit the gym, plans meals to stay healthy, and keeps a color-coded calendar to juggle it all. Barry, though, is different. He's studying humanities, a field he loves but one that doesn't promise the same financial stability or clear trajectory as mine. He's brilliant in his own way, with a knack for dissecting literature and a quiet charm that drew me to him. But his approach to life is laid back: late mornings, takeout dinners, and a shrug when I'd stress about deadlines. At first, I found it endearing, a balance to my intensity. Over time, though, it started to grate. Our differences weren't just about schedules. I'd spend hours at the gym or prepping meals, while Barry was content with pizza and Netflix marathons. I'd talk about my dreams, running my own practice one day, publishing research, while he'd nod but never seemed to match my fire. He was happy drifting and I couldn't understand it. I started to feel like I was carrying the weight of our future alone, and resentment crept in, slow but steady. Last fall, I got invited to a networking event hosted by a top psychology institute. It was a big deal: professors, clinicians, and recruiters mingling over wine and hors d'oeuvres. I begged Barry to come with me, thinking it'd be a chance for us to reconnect outside our usual routine. But he had a presentation due for one of his classes, a group project he swore he couldn't miss. I went alone, my heels clicking on the polished floor, heart pounding as I pitched my research to strangers. It was exhilarating. I came home buzzing, eager to tell Barry about the connections I'd made, the professor who'd asked for my CV. But when I walked in, he was sprawled on the couch, laptop open to YouTube. I tried to share my night, but he barely looked up, muttering something about being tired. I went to bed fuming, feeling invisible. That wasn't the only time I felt alone. A few weeks later, I planned a weekend trip to visit Jason, an old friend from undergrad who'd moved to Chicago. Jason and I had always been close, late-night talks about life, loss, and everything in between, but it was strictly platonic. I told Barry about the trip, expecting him to be fine with it. Instead, he got quiet, his jaw tight. "So you're just going to spend the weekend with some guy?" he asked, his voice sharp. I was stunned. Jason wasn't a threat, and Barry knew that. But he kept pushing, saying I didn't make enough time for him, that I was always prioritizing my career or friends over us. The fight escalated, words flying like knives. I accused him of being lazy, of not caring about my goals. He shot back that I made him feel small, like he'd never measure up. We went to bed angry, the silence between us heavier than ever. I didn't realize how much I was pulling away until I started venting to my sister, Emma. Over coffee one afternoon, I let it all spill. How Barry's lack of ambition frustrated me, how I felt like I was outgrowing him. "He's just not on my level," I said, cringing even as the words left my mouth. Emma listened, nodding, but warned me to be careful. "You sound like you're checking out," she said. I brushed it off, insisting I was just stressed. But deep down I knew she was right. I was starting to see Barry as less than me, and it wasn't fair. What I didn't know was that Barry would see those words. I'd left my phone on the counter one night, and a text to Emma popped up while he was grabbing a glass of water. "I'm so done with Barry dragging me down," it read. He scrolled through our conversation. Every complaint I'd typed out in frustration laid bare. When I got home, he was waiting, his face pale. "Is this how you really feel?" he asked, holding up my phone. My stomach dropped. I tried to explain, stumbling over apologies, but he wasn't hearing it. "You think I'm beneath you," he said, his voice breaking. "You've been lying to my face, acting like you love me while you trash me to your sister." I begged him to listen, but he just shook his head. "I need space," he said, and left. We decided to take a break, a week to cool off and figure things out. Alone in my apartment, I started to see things differently. I replayed our fights, our quiet moments, the times he'd made me laugh until I couldn't breathe. I realized I'd been unfair, focusing on his flaws instead of his strengths. His patience, his humor, the way he'd always listen, even when I was spiraling. I'd been so caught up in my own goals that I hadn't noticed how much I was hurting him. But there was another layer to my guilt, one I hadn't admitted to anyone. During our break, I'd gone to a colleague's party, a low-key thing with wine and jazz. There was this guy there, Mark, a postdoc with sharp eyes and a quick wit. We got to talking, and maybe it was the wine or the loneliness, but I let the conversation go too far. He leaned in close and I didn't pull away. We kissed just for a moment, before I snapped out of it and left. It wasn't an affair, but it was a line I'd never crossed before, and it left me sick with guilt. I didn't tell Barry, how could I? But it made me question everything. Was I sabotaging us because I didn't believe in him, or because I didn't believe in myself? I decided to reach out to Barry, ready to own my mistakes. I sent him a long text, apologizing for the text to Emma, for making him feel small. I promised to do better, to talk instead of bottling things up. He didn't respond right away and I got impatient. In a moment of stupidity, I posted a vague Facebook status about learning from mistakes and moving forward. I thought it was harmless, a way to process my feelings. But Barry saw it and took it as a jab, proof I was airing our drama for everyone to see. He called me that night, his voice cold. "You can't even respect me enough to keep this private," he said. "I'm done, Caitlin." Before I could argue, he hung up. That was 2 months ago, and I'm still picking up the pieces. I keep replaying that kiss with Mark, wondering if it was a symptom of bigger issues or just a stupid mistake. I know I messed up, venting to Emma, crossing a line at that party, posting that dumb status. But Barry wasn't perfect either. His insecurities, his refusal to meet me halfway on my goals, they chipped away at us too. I've thought about reaching out again, drafting texts I never send. Part of me wants to fight for him, to prove I can be better. But another part wonders if we're too different, if I just hurt him again. For now, I'm focusing on myself, therapy, my doctorate, trying to understand why I let things spiral. The future's uncertain, but I know one thing. I'll never stop regretting how I betrayed his trust and mine.